We are sinking, and I don't just mean metaphorically. We are actively being attacked by a kraken. I knew I shouldn't have steered the ship to Seattle, but just because our ship's going down doesn't mean we can't do some light plundering, right? That is the core concept behind We're Sinking, provided to us by Ludimus Games. In We're Sinking, you take the role of a pirate navigating past a deadly monster. On your turn, you will publicly announce what you are going to do, which might be bucketing out some water, which exchanges some cards in your hand and also stops your ship from sinking, repairing cannons or breaches, which will hopefully stop more water from coming in, firing those cannons at the monster so you bring it down before it brings you down, or forgoing all of that to do some light plundering.
After publicly announcing what you are going to do in turn order, everyone reveals the action they are actually planning on doing. And this is important because it allows for a bit of skullduggery. You see, people who say they are going to bucket and then actually plunder might leave the ship in a worse state than when they found it. But if they can get more valuable cards in their hand, they might be able to win the game. Once the ship has taken on enough water at the start of a round, the ship sinks. But just a little bit. Just enough, in fact, to float some treasure chest up, which provides another chance for plundering, as now players who are repairing breaches and cannons have the choice to forego that to open up one of these treasure chests, which contain valuable loot or upgraded versions of actions.
The game ends when one of two things happens. Either the monster is killed, and whoever has the most points between cards in their hand and treasure chests they've rescued wins, or the ship sinks, and whoever has the fewest cards left in their hand wins. There's interesting back and forth between these two gaming conditions. Players who are keeping the ship alive and therefore progressing more towards the most points total will lose to people who are plundering and not helping the ship. But if the ship is sinking, a player who has been bucketing water and repairing breaches this entire time will win because they haven't been plundering and adding cards to their hand. The back and forth makes it a very interesting choice turn to turn for the players, where they have to decide whether or not they think the game is more likely to be decided by the monster winning or us killing the monster.
On top of the two in-game conditions, another interesting concept in this game is the monsters. There's 4 of them in the base game with different quirks that make the game easier or more difficult. The differences change the game, but I'll say that they didn't really feel that much different, except for the Siren's Die that stops all communications through round until after the actions are revealed.
This game does a great job of making you feel like a pirate, but there are some rough edges that you should be aware of. This game varies wildly based on the monster's dice rolls. I think this is done a little bit intentionally to make sure that the game static is constantly changing and that players have to actively make choices every round. But sometimes it felt like the dice were playing the game and the players were just along for the ride. Like if we're pretty late in the game and there's just an absolutely terrible dice roll that you can't really do anything to mitigate or stop, then you are just gonna either bucket water to exchange cards from your hand to hopefully get better ones in there, or you're going to repair breaches to discard down because you're trying to get as few cards as possible at that point because you know we're sinking.
There's also an attempt at player asymmetry, but it's just a one-time use card per player, and it really felt more tacked on than anything else. I would also be amiss if I didn't mention the ship. It gives the game amazing table presence, and it does serve some functions in the game, like showing how far we've sunk so far, and making sure those treasure chests that float up as you sink actually make their way onto the board. But the pieces don't fit snugly, and it's very easy to knock the top off by bumping the table a bit too much. I could probably fix this with some sandpaper if I really wanted to, but I would prefer that build quality just not be an issue in the first place.
I think this game has a really solid base, and I think that with more interesting villains, which I do believe there are some of those in an expansion that is on the way, this could easily become my favorite pirate game. But as it stands, I think it is a solid game that lacks a bit of strategic depth that I was really hoping was there, but is a heck of a lot of fun. Now, If you're looking for a more thematically resonant pirate game, I would recommend Treasure Island. It is my personal favorite pirate game. It has a little bit more strategic depth than We're Sinking, and is just a lot of fun. If you're looking for a true cooperative instead of semi-cooperative pirate game, you should check out Sail, which Jack did a review on in the top right of your screen right now. That is my review. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are. What are your favorite pirate-themed board games? What is a board game that you love that is all theme? Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I am Eric with the Cardboard Herald.